So how many of you here read Savitri quite regularly? Okay. So what is your experience of reading Savitri? Is it just words? What do you feel when you read Savitri? How many of you have never picked up Savitri on your own to read it? Okay, good, because maybe after today you will. So, anyone tell me what is your experience of reading Savitri?
It just brings me a lot of peace.
Okay.
And I think as I'm reading it, for these last couple of years, there is an understanding, thanks to of course you also and all the sessions that we've attended here. But it's a feeling of Savitri actually talking to you.
Right.
And whenever there is a daunting question and you open up, there is also some answer that comes from it.
Right. So Savitri speaks to you,
Absolutely.
you feel. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Kaddu, you can come here. So, so Savitri actually speaks to you. Yeah? So, if you read any beautiful book, do you find a response in your body like goose flesh or anything like that? Often you do, right? So, when I first saw Savitri, I had just come to Mother. I didn't even know much that a book like that existed. But I was at Nargol in the Navsarjan school, and they put up these words on the blackboard, those famous words, at the head she stands of birth and toil and fate. And it was my first experience of words entering as sensations in my body. I didn't know what Savitri was. By the time I finished reading it, at the bottom I read Savitri Sri Aurobindo. But I read it, I didn't know what it meant, I didn't know who it was referring to, at the head she stands. But those words were just entering and entering my body as the most pleasant physical sensations. So then I asked somebody, what is this Savitri? I didn't even know what this was, because I had just found Mother maybe a month or so before. And that's in a way my starting point with my journey with Savitri. So the first few passages are Mother's words to Mona Sarkar about Savitri and how it can be such a tool for your growth. Do you need a backrest? Maybe Mansi can shift a little. No, Ashumi, you also need it. Why you? All three of you can fit. Ashumi, you'll be uncomfortable. All three of you can fit.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, so Mother says to Mona Sarkar, my child, yes, everything is there. Mysticism, cultism, philosophy, the history of evolution, the history of man, of the gods, of creation, of nature, how the universe was created, why, for what purpose, what destiny, all is there in Savitri, she means. You can find there all the answers to all your questions. Everything is explained, even the future of man and of evolution, all that nobody yet knows. So all your questions, if you look at Savitri, are answered there. He has expressed them in beautiful and clear words, so that spiritual adventurers who wish to solve the mysteries of the world may understand it more easily. But the mystery is well hidden behind the lines, and one must rise to the required level of consciousness to discover it. All the prophecies, all that's going to happen is presented with a precise and wonderful clarity. Sri Aurobindo gives you here the key to find the truth, to discover the consciousness, to solve the problems of what the universe is. Let's pause here. Is it true that Savitri gives us all the answers to the questions of existence? Lots of you have been attending classes for very long. Can you tell me one or two lines which you remember which have been game changers for you from Savitri? There is a meaning in every curve and line. A simple line like that, it can be so transforming that whatever pain, whatever I'm going through, there's a meaning in each curve and line. Anything else? Our life is a paradox with God for key. Our life is a bundle of opposites, sadness and joy, courage and fear. But all those opposites get dissolved when we come close to our God nature. Our life is a paradox with God for key. Kaddu, give me one. Huh? What? Kaddu says the supreme diplomat makes our fall a means for a greater rise. How beautiful is that? Then you're never afraid of falling, right? Because the supreme diplomat God will make our fall a means for a greater rise. Or that beautiful line, even through the mists of mortal thought, infallible are thy mysterious steps. Even through the cloudiness of my thinking, your guidance somehow makes itself felt. So there are these jewels from Savitri which, if they really enter you, you can't really be the same person again. Vijal, give me one. Wherever there is ignorance, there's suffering too must come. Anyone else wants to give me one?
Nothing is truly vain that the one has made.
Nothing is truly vain that the one has made. Anyone? Anything? Whether it seem good or evil to men's eyes, only for good the secret will can work. So it's really true, these are not just words. He has expressed them in beautiful and clear words so that spiritual adventurers who wish to solve the mysteries of the world may understand it more easily. But the mystery is well hidden behind the lines, and one must rise to the required level of true consciousness to discover it. All the prophecies, all that is going to happen is presented with precise and wonderful clarity. Sri Aurobindo gives you here the key to find the truth, to discover the consciousness, to solve the problem of what the universe is. He has also indicated how he has opened the door of the inconscience. What is inconscience? That part of us which is very unconscious, which is very jad, so to say. So he has also opened the door of the inconscience so that the light may penetrate there to transform it. So there are cantos and cantos where Sri Aurobindo has written about his struggle with the inconscience. How to liberate oneself from the ignorance to climb up to the superconscience. So all of us knows what's inconscience, what's superconscience? All of us know that? No? Okay, so we often understand this, understanding the electromagnetic spectrum metaphorically. So Vibgyor, white light, is our waking state. We can see it. Below red light, there's infrared, invisible to us, which is metaphorically the inconscient. Frequency is below our waking state. Beyond violet, there's ultraviolet, which is superconscient. Frequency is above our waking state, our God nature. So we are this entire spectrum, superconscient, waking state, inconscient. Okay. So Sri Aurobindo has given us in Savitri, he has shown the path how to liberate oneself from ignorance to climb up to the superconscience. Each stage, each plane of consciousness, how one can scale them, how one can cross the very barrier of death and attain immortality. You will find the entire route in detail, and as you go forward, you can discover things altogether unknown to man. That is what Savitri is, and yet much more. It is truly an experience reading Savitri. All the secrets that man possesses, he has revealed them, as well as what waits for him in future. All this is found in the depths of Savitri, but one must have the knowledge to discover them, the experience of the planes of consciousness, the experience of the Supreme, even the experience of the conquest of death. He has stated all the stages, marked each step needed in order to advance in an integral way in the integral yoga. All this is his own experience. So Sri Aurobindo used to say, I'm not a philosopher, I'm a poet and a seer. I write what I see. What he used to see with his inner vision, he used to write in Savitri. It is my sadhana which is, he has described. Mother saying, it is my sadhana he has described. Each object, each event, each realization, all the descriptions, even the colors are exactly what I saw, and the words and phrases are exactly what I heard. And all this before having read the book. I read Savitri many times afterwards, but earlier when he was writing, he used to read it to me. Every morning I used to hear him read Savitri. At night he would write, and in the morning read it to me. And I observed something strange, that day after day the experiences he read out to me in the morning were those I had had the previous night, word for word. So once mother actually writes, when Sri Aurobindo would read it out to her, she would say, Lord, you have completely exposed me, because these inner experiences are very intimate, and somehow he would just write it in Savitri. Yes, they were exactly my experiences of the previous night, which he read out to me the following morning. And it was not just one day, but for days and days together. And every time I used to compare what he said with my previous experiences, and they were always the same. I repeat, it was not that I had told him my experiences and that he had noted them down afterwards. No, he knew already what I had seen. It is my experiences he has presented all along, and they were also his experiences. It is moreover the picture of our adventure together into the unknown, or rather into the supermind. These are experiences lived by him, realities, supracosmic truths. He experienced all these as one experiences joy and sorrow in a physical manner. He has walked in the darkness of inconscience, even in the neighborhood of death, endured the sufferings of perdition, and has emerged from the mud, the world misery, to breathe the sovereign plenitude and enter the supreme Ananda. So, one often thinks that after mother came, for so many decades, Sri Aurobindo was just cooped up in his room. No, he never really came out except to give darshan. And yet on his samadhi, when he was put away, mother gives that beautiful message for him. To thee who has been the material envelope of our master, to thee our infinite gratitude, to thee who has worked, suffered, hoped, achieved all for us, to thee we bow down and implore that we may never forget, even for a moment, all we owe to thee. So we would think he's just been in his room, what can we possibly owe to him? But if those of us who are fond of Pandi and we go there and we find ourselves changed when we come back, Pandi was just a piece of land. Why does it have this atmosphere? Because in his room, and of course mother in hers, they were both working day and night to, in Savitri there's a beautiful line, in the core of darkness she dug wells of light, because they were digging deep into the universal inconscient and paving inroads through which light can enter. And for that he went through untold misery to go into those realms. It's the darkest of darkest realms. If you read his sonnets, he's described them, about what a battle it's been, how many attacks he went through. And at one point he said only a divine love can bear the kind of burden we are bearing, because human love can't bear it, and they didn't need to do it for themselves. They were avatars, they did everything for humanity. So they said only a divine love can bear the kind of burden that we are bearing. So he has traversed them all, these realms, borne the consequences, suffered and endured physically what none know, what one cannot imagine. We can't even imagine it. Nobody till today has suffered like him. He has accepted suffering to transform suffering into the joy of union with the Supreme. It is something unique and incomparable in the history of the world. It is something that has never happened. He is the first to have traced the path in the unknown, so that we may be able to walk with certitude towards the supermind. He has made the work easy for us. Savitri is his whole yoga of transformation. And this yoga, it is for the first time that we see it appear in the earth consciousness, because all other yogas were about escaping into nirvana. But Sri Aurobindo's is the first yoga where he wants the light of the spirit to enter matter and transform matter itself. So it's an unprecedented yoga. One needs spiritual experiences in order to understand and assimilate it. The more one advances on the path of yoga, the more one assimilates and better. No, it is something which will be appreciated only in the future. It is the poetry of tomorrow which he has spoken in the future poetry. It is too subtle, too refined. It is not in the mind or by the mind. It is in the meditation that Savitri is revealed. Mother tells Mona Sarkar, my child, every day you are going to read Savitri. Read properly with the right attitude, concentrating a little before opening the pages and trying to keep the mind as empty as possible, absolutely without a thought. The direct road is through that, the heart. So there's an interesting story about Savitri. There was once a very senior person in Pondicherry, and this very simple man came and told him, I want to start reading Savitri. But his English was very simple, and he was struggling to speak it. So this sadhak thought, now how do I tell him to read Savitri when the basic English is not so clear for him? Then this man told him, English is not a strong point for me, but whenever I read Savitri, I see a blue light on every line I'm reading. So that humbled the sadhak so much. And when Vijay Bhai in Pandi was asked that is Savitri difficult to read, so he said it's extremely difficult to read with the mind, but it's extremely easy to read with the heart. So you don't need intellect, you need an opening in the soul. So many scholars of English will say this is not poetry because it doesn't reach them here. But if you have an opening here and your English is whatever it is, you can go on a complete trip with Savitri, because it's a language of vibrations. You may not be champs at Sanskrit, but how chanting certain Sanskrit chants. So Sri Aurobindo has made the same experiment in Savitri. Mother says he has written each line to create the vibration of an Om. Every line gives you closer and closer to the vibration of an Om. So don't think you have to be very advanced in English to read Savitri. You just have to have an opening in the heart and Savitri speaks to you. So I tell you, if you try to really concentrate with this aspiration, you can light the flame, the psychic flame, the flame of purification in a very short time, perhaps in a few days. What you cannot do normally, you will do it with the help of Savitri. Try and you will see how very different it is. How new if you read with this attitude, with this something at the back of your consciousness, as though it were an offering to Sri Aurobindo. So beautiful. She says, read Savitri as if it's an offering to Sri Aurobindo at the back of your mind. You know it is charged, fully charged with consciousness, as though Savitri were a being, a real guide. I tell you, whoever wants to practice yoga, if he tries sincerely and feels the necessity, he will be able to climb with the help of Savitri to the highest rung of the ladder of yoga, will be able to find the secret that Savitri represents. And this without the help of a guru. When somebody had asked Mother that after you and Gurudev leave your body, who will be our Guru? And she had picked up the Savitri and said, this will be your Guru. And he will be able to practice it anywhere. Savitri by itself will be his guide. For all he needs, he will find in Savitri. If he remains absolutely quiet when he is faced with a difficulty, or when he does not know where to turn in order to go forward and how to overcome obstacles for these hesitations and these incertitudes which overwhelm us at every moment, he will have the necessary indications and the necessary concrete help. If he remains absolutely calm, open, if he aspires sincerely, always he will be as if led by the hand. If he has faith, the will to give himself and the essential sincerity, he will reach the final goal. Indeed, Savitri is something concrete, living. It is all replete, packed with consciousness. In fact, we call it Sri Aurobindo Shabda Deha, his word body. It is the supreme knowledge above all human philosophies, all religions. It is the spiritual path. It is yoga, tapasya, sadhana, everything in its single body. Savitri has an extraordinary power. It sends out vibrations for him who can receive them. And if you're very quiet, you'll feel it in your body. Just reading Savitri, whether you're understanding or not, you'll just feel sensations of light in your body. Savitri has an extraordinary power. It sends out vibrations for him who can receive them. The true vibrations of each stage of consciousness. It is incomparable. It is truth in its plenitude, the truth Sri Aurobindo brought down on earth. My child, one must try to find the secret that Savitri represents. The prophetic message Sri Aurobindo reveals there for us. This is the work before you. It is hard, but it's worth the trouble. So that's just to share with you, years ago, I taught this 16-year-old boy, and after his yoga camp to Pondicherry, where he bought the Savitri, some teenagers buy it, some just keep it, some read it. He was one of those who actually read it every night, and he didn't understand much, but it was a discipline that he would read it every night before he slept. Now this boy was highly dyslexic and he was due to give his IGCSE board exam, and he was diagnosed with dyslexia just few months before, and very intelligent, but on paper his grades were poor. He did of course a lot of remedial treatment, but he would make it a point to read Savitri, and he said sometimes he would just keep reading. He would intend to read just one page, but he would keep reading, and then he doesn't know when he would fall asleep and the book would be there. and he stood 5th in his school in the IGCSE board exam, and he feels that reading Savitri somehow worked on his brain and helped him to do better. Well, he did take remedial treatment, but I can't imagine that that would take him from close to bottom of the class to the top 5. So Savitri can really change things in you if you approach it like that. So, and then very interesting, this boy would then take Savitri wherever he went. He went to do an internship in summer in a university abroad, and he was reading Savitri below a tree. So everyone asked him, what's that you're reading? So he said, then they invited him to talk on Savitri, and this little 17-year-old, whatever he knew, he spoke about it and his experiences. And then on his door, you know, you can put up a do not disturb sign, but every day he would put up a quote from Savitri or some words of Sri Aurobindo, and people would knock and say, what is that you put up? And he'd invite them in and talk to them about it. So if it could reach a 17-year-old like that, it can reach anyone, isn't it? So now, this is from Conversations with a Disciple, March 28, 1964. Mother says, all that I'm doing, all that this body is doing, it has the power to pass on to others. That's precisely what I'm studying now. I am studying this. It's a sort of power to put people in contact with the vibration of the consciousness radiating gesture around the head. This is concentrated on a number of people and things all over the earth naturally, but also on certain points. It's the power that came the night when there was that descent in the brain. At any moment, I was able to direct a beam here, another beam there, touch a point here, another point there. So Mother says she is sort of channeling a power to put people into contact with the higher consciousness. That's what Sri Aurobindo never stopped repeating. Do not try to do it all by yourself. The Mother will do it for you if you trust her. Sri Aurobindo never stopped repeating this. Do not try to do it all by yourself. The Mother will do it for you if you trust her. So if you read Dilip Kumar Roy's book, Sri Aurobindo Came to Me, fascinating account of his interactions with Gurudev. So he had a very individualized personality and he wanted to try things in his own way. So once he said, I told Gurudev that I'm just going to do my japa and meditation hours and hours a day till I find my God. And Sri Aurobindo indicated to him that it's not going to serve much of a purpose, but he's saying, no, I'm going to do it. So he sat hours and hours and meditated and did his japa and went deeper and deeper into gloom and despair. And at one point, he just in tears addressed Krishna. Krishna was his Ishta, that you know that I have never wanted anything but you, or at least aspired to that state. And I've left no stone unturned, but you remain as elusive as ever. And he says, the moment I said that, a radiating luminous peace descended into me and I could almost feel its quality as something soft and velvety. And when he wrote about this to Sri Aurobindo says, yes, that was a psychic experience. It came when you gave away your effort, when you acknowledge that you can try to move mountains with your efforts, but nothing will happen. It's only when you allow grace to do it for you, that one moment of I'm helpless, you do, and it happened. So so Mother says here, Sri Aurobindo never stopped repeating, do not try to do it all by yourself. The Mother will do it for you if you trust her. But that is very difficult for us. We always feel we have to do, otherwise it won't get done. But then that we learn through life experience. Like Dilip Kumar Roy was frustrated in his meditation, we may get frustrated in many other things, trying to do it by ourselves, and then we tell her, okay mother, you do. This I never say to anyone. Mother saying, Sri Aurobindo's words, do not try to do it all by yourself. The mother will do it for you if you trust her. This I never say to anyone, but it's a fact. I never say it. I'm saying it to you just now, but it's an absolute fact. It isn't, you know this, it isn't done for one body. It is done for the earth. I'm doing it for the earth. But the advantage of the individuality is that you can aim, so I'm not doing, mother saying, I'm not doing it for this one body, but the advantage of being individualized in this body is you can aim a beam at precise points and obtain a result. Not in a miraculous way that leaves people open-mouthed and stupid, not that. But when the aspiration is sincere, when the will is sincere, you know what I do constantly is, Lord, I cannot do it for me, Lord, I cannot do it for me. That's the Divine Mother. Now we are saying, why is the mother saying I can't do it? But mother explains that when she's taken on an earth body, she allows herself to feel like us so that she can tell us that this is the path to walk. If she had maintained her divine status, she'd never really understand what we go through. She could never identify with our aspiration. So the mother in her earth body is really addressing herself in her supreme divine status. And we find this constantly in her prayers and meditation, the diary she's written where she's addressing the Supreme. Lord, I cannot do it for me. Lord, I cannot do it for me. Well, that's what Sri Aurobindo said. If people around me do not have the direct contact with the Lord, a contact I brought with my birth, of mother says, a contact which she brought with her birth. She is the Divine Mother. So when she was born, she brought this channel for humanity to access. A contact I brought with my birth, of which I have grown more and more conscious, but which was the very source of this earthly existence. We know all those beautiful stories of mother's childhood, right? That when she was barely 12, 13, she would see herself going out of her body wearing a huge golden robe, and all the people who were ailing and sick would be reaching out for it, and the robe would bend down, touch them, and they'd go back healed to her body, to their body. And she said even at that age, nothing gave her more joy than these nightly experiences. So by taking birth on earth, her very birth gave access of something quite beautiful to humanity. But the if they don't, so Sri Aurobindo said, if people around me do not have the direct contact with the Lord, if they don't have that contact, they can have a conscious contact with me, mother saying. That's easy, because of course it's something visible, tangible, with a real existence. So in one of Mirabai's bhajans, she addresses Krishna that, Krishna, I know you're the infinite blue of the sky, but in your infinite compassion, you understand that I can't relate to you as the blue of the sky. So the blue of the sky took the form of this blue body so that I can relate to it. So the mother is infinite, but she came to us in this body so that we can see it, we can relate to it, communicate with her. There's that beautiful line in Savitri, 1,000 icons they make of her and find her in the idols they make, but she remains herself an infinite. We may find her in the form, but she remains herself an infinite. So if one can be in that state of offering, not with words or sentences, but with a truly sincere feeling, No, I don't know how I can do it all by myself. How can I? It's such a formidable thing to do. How can I? How can I even discern exactly between the true movement and the untrue, or between the movement that leads to the truth? And no, I don't know. I give it all to you. Do it for me. Isn't that true for all of us? Sometimes our mind is such a clutter, we just don't know. So, and Mother writes somewhere that this not knowing often will give you a sense of inadequacy, confusion. I feel small because I can't decide. But she's saying with your mind you cannot decide. Your mind just doesn't know enough to decide. So just offer it to me and leave it. I will take my action. So even if you don't know what's going to come, you can find peace in the knowing that Mother knows. I've addressed it to her, I've given it to her, now let her take me forward, Ash. And you'll see how she takes her action and things just go the way they are meant to go. And that goes on 24 hours a day. What goes on 24 hours a day? The title of our talk. I give it all to you. Do it for me. That goes on 24 hours a day. And I can say as many thousand seconds as there are in a day, spontaneously, sincerely, absolutely gesture of offering. Here, I give it to you. Oh, here comes a difficulty. Oh, so and so has a difficulty. Oh, these circumstances are bad. Oh, here. I cannot sort it out with the knowledge I have. Do what needs to be done. Do what needs to be done. I give it to you. It's a gesture of every moment, every second. Can you understand the depth of what she's saying? It's a gesture of every moment, every second. We find it difficult to do it for a few seconds because we are so attached to it. We overthink, we try to find solutions. I'm not saying that's bad, but imagine Mother was in a state where every moment, every second, and when she was working on the cells of her body, her whole organs were being transmuted. We can't even imagine what her experience was like. She was in the absolute depths of the unknown, and she writes, in the midst of all those chaotic experiences, I mean, her hearing was changing where people thought she was old and she couldn't hear. But she had reached such a level of truth consciousness that only if a person was speaking the truth, it reached her. If somebody came with any falsehood, her ears couldn't pick it up. And people couldn't understand that, so they made all kinds of assumptions about her and her sickness and her old age. But only she knew what she was going through. I mean, she was plunged in the midst of the unknown at every moment. Imagine your whole, our life going awry is one thing, but imagine your organs changing, your hearing changing. We can't even imagine the unknown she was in the middle of. And through it all, she would say, do what you will, do what you will, I give it to you. She would just give it away to the Lord and live like that. And that goes on 24 hours a day, and I can say as many thousand seconds as there are in a day, spontaneously, sincerely, absolutely. Here, I give it to you. Then after some time, you see such an obvious response. You know so clear that all that has doubts or lacks understanding is compelled first to keep quiet and then to give in. So if you really open to the Mother, Mother handles your doubts. You can't fight your doubts by yourself, but if you give it to her, you're very anxious about something, you're fearful about something. You know, we human beings are almost superstitious about our anxiety. We feel if we think about enough about it, we'll be safe. You know what I mean? We feel compelled to keep thinking about it as if that's our safety. You're confused, you don't understand what I mean, Nash? But if we, in fact, that is what keeps us away from her light. This prison we form of overthinking and being anxious. But if we just think that, yeah, the situation is here, but mother is there. In Sanskrit, one of her name is the one who's skilled in making the impossible possible, right? Ghatan Ghatna Pata, you see. I'm giving it over to her. I don't know how it will work, but she's going to make it work. And instead of finding your security and worrying about it, find your security in faith. That's the more real security, because worrying about it actually blocks you away from her light. And mother says fear is hidden assent, hidden saying yes to it. You're saying yes to it and you're inviting it. So fear is hidden assent. Don't say yes to it. When you're with the mother, she can change everything. Why do you have to worry about anything? Then after some time, you see such an obvious response, so clear that all that has doubts or lacks understanding is compelled first to keep quiet and then give in. Only I am in a transitional period in which I cannot actively look after people. That is, see them, talk to them, receive them, give them meditations. I can't. It's impossible. The body is unable to do both things, and it is clearly more important for it to attract as much truth force as it can and work like this in silence than to help 1, 2 or 3 or 10 or 100 people to progress. So last time I shared this with you, that there was an American Indian who'd come down to see her. He had a very lovely goodwill, but didn't know much about yoga, and he was very keen on meeting the mother when she was in her body. And those days she wasn't seeing people, as she just said, because she was concentrating on bringing the truth to the earth, the truth light down. And so they told him, we are sorry, mother won't see you. And he was in his room in an ashram guest house, and most guest houses have pictures of mother and Sri Aurobindo in the room. And he was looking at her picture, and he saw a flash of white light come out of it, and he got startled, and he looked at it again, and it came out again, and he teared up, and he sent word about this to the mother, and the mother said, yes, I know, I felt his aspiration to see me, but because I couldn't meet him physically, I met him like this. So mother shares an experience of her with this disciple. It was the first time the supermind, everyone's familiar with the word supermind? Padmini, are you familiar with it? Supermind? Little bit? You've read Mother and Sri Aurobindo?
No.
Okay, so Sri Aurobindo says that for his yoga, two things are, he first of all says an imperfect person, like imperfect species like man, cannot be the crowning glory of nature's creative impulse. So man has to evolve to a higher species. He calls that species supramental, above mind. It won't think with mind. It will have a direct truth consciousness which will intuit things. So he says for this evolution to the supramental species, two things are necessary. The descent of a very special atmosphere into the earth consciousness, which is the supramental force, which did come down when mother was in her body on 29th February, which is regarded as the supramental day in 1956, and two, man's conscious collaboration. So this mental mind has to evolve to the supermind, the mind, the consciousness of truth. Yeah, so that's what she refers to again and again as the supermind. So it was the first time the supermind entered the cells of my body. Now, to think that supermind can be a substance, a material substance which can enter the cells of the body. and it had risen up to the brain. So the brain found itself in the presence of something laughing, mother laughs, considerably more powerful than it was used to receiving. And like the idiot it is, mother's talking about her own brain, and like the idiot it is, it got worried. As for me, gesture above and beyond, mother wasn't the brain, mother was above the brain. I saw it all. I saw that the brain was getting worried. So I tried to tell it what a nitwit it was and just to keep still. It did keep still, but it was really seething away in there as if it was about to explode. So I said, all right, now let's go see Sri Aurobindo and ask him what to do. Sri Aurobindo wasn't in his body then, but she of course had her ways. Immediately, everything became utterly calm, and I woke up in Sri Aurobindo's house in the subtle physical, a very material sensation with everything quite concrete. So I arrived, or rather not I, but the body consciousness arrived and started explaining to Sri Aurobindo what had happened. We'll delete the two after the arrived and started explaining to Sri Aurobindo what had happened. It was very excited, talking and talking. The response was a sort of inscrutable smile, and then nothing. He simply looked. An inscrutable means you can't figure it out. An inscrutable smile, not a word. All the excitement died away. A face out of eternity. Sri Aurobindo's was a face out of eternity. The excitement died away. Then it was time for Sri Aurobindo's lunch. Into bracket, people eat there in another way. So as not to disturb him, I went into the next room. He came in after some time and stood before me. I, my physical being, that is my physical consciousness, had time to calm down. I knelt down and took his hand. A much clearer sensation than anything physical more petty. I kissed his hand. He simply said, "Oh, this is better," mother laughs. So earlier she'd gone to him with the brain saying, "This is this, this is that," and he just smiled. He didn't answer her. And he went away for lunch. And by the time the brain had calmed down, and he said, "This is better." I am skipping all the details. It was a long thing lasting an hour. But suddenly he went out of the room, leaving me alone, after expressing what he wanted to tell me with a gesture, which I understood. And then I simply seemed to take a step, gesture of crossing a threshold. And I found myself lying in my bed again. And at that moment I said to myself, really, we make all kinds of complications and it's so simple. You just have to go like this, the same gesture, and there you are. Then you go like that, the same gesture in the opposite direction, and you're back here. So what are the two gestures? One is hyper, what will I do, what is happening? The other gesture, you're there. So Sri Aurobindo writes so beautifully, and we do this line in our yoga classes all the time. And the final analysis, you need to know only two things, that there's a soul within and grace above. Otherwise our mind gets so, I need to know this to feel safe, I need to know, did this happen, I need to know whether it actually happened, whether it didn't. But it's so beautiful. He's telling you in the final analysis, you need to know only two things, that you have a soul within and grace above. Let go of all other knowings. If you know this, you're good. So that's what she's saying. You can go in this direction, or it's so simple, you can just go in this direction. So now words from Savitri. I had, when we were reading about Savitri, I had shared with you that mother would have experiences, and when she'd go to Sri Aurobindo the next day, he would read out and they would be exactly her experiences. So, and somewhere, actually we should come to this passage in a bit. One sec. We'll come to this passage, it will be more clear after this. Come to page 11 of the PDF. Mother's word, Sri Aurobindo has arranged everything. Sri Aurobindo has arranged everything so that my work becomes easy. Sri Aurobindo has the key to open this region of the inconscience. See, what is the inconscience? Mother says the inconscience is the reservoir from which a lot of our fears, even our diseases, our illnesses, blocked sinuses, or whatever troubles us often, it's all coming from the inconscience. And no real healing is possible till the light goes down to the inconscience. But if we try to plumb the inconscience without the light of the superconscious, we are going to be in a very dark place. And in a way, Freud and all the psychoanalysis, it plumbs the inconscious in a very incomplete manner. Sri Aurobindo has written about it, that in fact it can imbalance you because you are not equipped with the light of the superconscious, and you are going into a very dark place which can bring out depression and things like that, which you can't handle because it's all suppressed there. Students of psychology, you should read about this, because if you support what you do with what Sri Aurobindo has written about the superconscient and help people channel that, the healing is so much faster and so much quicker. Then just see, Sri Aurobindo says the secret of the lotus is not in the mud in which it grows. Its secret is in the archetype of the lotus which ever blooms in the sky above. Our truth is more truly in our superconscient. It's not in the subconscient. The secret of the lotus is not in the mud in which it grows. So if we are plumbing the mud, we have to be well anchored in the light. Otherwise, we can get very lost. So, Sri Aurobindo has the key to open this region of the inconscience. So very often when we go to Pandi, we'll find we'll have our highest and lowest moments in Pandi. Pandi has this atmosphere which will just sometimes bring out things in you which you wonder, where did they come from? Why am I feeling so dark? But it's like if you have a beaker of water and there's sand at the bottom and a stick stirs it, the sand will rise to the surface, so you'll see it. Otherwise it remains down. But the very vibe of Pandi is such that it brings out what needs to be brought out. So stick it out. You'll never go away incomplete. I always tell people I take there that you cannot come to Pandi unless you're invited. Those who call to the infinite are called by the infinite, and you'll never go back empty-handed. You may go through a roller coaster on the way, but that's good. You'll never go back incomplete. So, Sri Aurobindo has arranged everything so that my work becomes easy. Sri Aurobindo has the key to open this region of the inconscience. That's the work he did in his room. He's paved way into the inconscience, the collective inconscience of all of us. He turns the key to open the door and illumines my way, and very gently I enter to infuse the force, the light and the divine Ananda into the body of this inert and obscure matter. So Sri Aurobindo is the light in the inconscient. He has descended down and opened the way, and Mother then enters it. This is how they are working together. When it is touched by this transforming light, the atoms that constitute this matter awake to a new consciousness. Like this, the work continues and spreads or multiplies. You understand, Sri Aurobindo is the soul of matter, the aspiration of the whole humanity. He is the light in matter, or the spirit incarnated in matter. Sri Aurobindo has separated himself from the Supreme and has plunged into this matter. In his sonnet, I don't remember the exact words, but he writes, Vijal, can you look it up? If you don't have a Nash, can you look it up? Son, there's no Nat. Something to the effect, my wounds are 1001. Is it not yet thy hour of victory? He asks. The Titans are constantly attacking me. My wounds are 1001. Is it not yet thy hour of victory? But I'm not saying the exact words, but something to the effect that whatever you will, I'd go through it. It's called My Assignment with Night. It's a sonnet. Rama, if you can. My?
I know, but I don't know the assignation with the
Yes, if you can find it. Or just get it from the library. It's in the sonnets. It's a beautiful sonnet. For this he has invoked the Supreme, the grace to descend here below on this earth to help in his work. That is why, having heard his call, I have come down here into matter in a physical body, into this world of pain, suffering and death. It's like this we see in Savitri. You know, there's Ashwapati, Savitri's father's yoga, where he's invoking the Divine Mother, right? There are all those beautiful cantos about vision and the boon. And then a voice says, yes, I have heard your call, I'm coming. So that's what she's saying here. Just find the poem. For this he has invoked the supreme grace to descend here below on this earth to help in his work. That is why, having heard his call, I have come down here into matter, into a physical body, into this world of pain and suffering and death. And it is in the union of both of us that the world will witness gradually this miracle of a divine life. It is because of him that I have descended. It is this intense aspiration of matter. Sri Aurobindo represents this aspiration of matter. It is this intense aspiration of matter from below that he has sent up, and the grace has responded by a descent. What a blessed hour for the earth. It is an occasion for a tremendous progress, so that the whole universe may blossom in a great elan towards the goal of its existence. With our help, which will be at its disposal, and a will to pursue what could be there that would be impossible to realize. This is the moment. Not there here? It has to be here. Give it to me. Pilgrim of the Night. Sorry, it's called Pilgrim of the Night. Give it to me, I'll find it.
because assignation was somewhere else.
Okay, so maybe I meant Pilgrim of the Night. Pilgrim of the Night, page 24. Yes. I made an assignation with the night. In the abyss was fixed our rendezvous. He says, I made a date with the night, and in the abyss our rendezvous was fixed. In my breast carrying God's deathless light, I came her dark and dangerous heart to woo. I left the glory of the illumined mind and the calm rapture of the divinized soul, and travelled through a vastness dim and blind to the grey shore where her ignorant waters roll. I walk by the chill wave through the dull slime, and still the weary journeying knows no end. Lost is the lustrous Godhead beyond time. There comes no voice of the celestial friend. And yet I know my footprints track shall be a pathway towards immortality. So, now we come back to that passage on Savitri. It will make a lot of sense. So, come back to page 9 of the PDF. So, this is Ashwapati's aspiration rising to God. It says, he says, O bliss, whoever dwellest deep hid within, while men seek thee outside and never find. She's addressing the Divine Mother. You are the bliss, whoever dwellest deep hid within, while men seek thee outside and never find. Mystery and muse with hieratic tongue. Muse is inspiration with a prophetic tongue. Incarnate the white passion of thy force. Come down to earth in some incarnation, he's telling her. Mission to earth some living form of thee. One moment fill with thy eternity. Let thy infinity in one body live. All knowledge wrap one mind in seas of light. All love throb single in one human heart. Immortal, treading the earth with mortal feet. All heaven's beauty crowd in earthly limbs. Omnipotence, girdle with the power of God. Omnipotence is almighty. Girdle, like what you wear around your waist. Girdle with the power of God. Movements and moments of a mortal will. Pack with the eternal might one human hour. And with one gesture change all future time. Let a great word be spoken from the heights, and one great act unlock the doors of fate. So this is Sri Aurobindo's The Aspiration of Matter calling out that come down, we need you. So I'll just read this without explanation. Just shut your eyes and see what you feel in your skin. Savitri can be a very physical experience sometimes. As Sri Aurobindo says, read Savitri as an offering to Sri Aurobindo. Hear it like an offering to him and listen from that space. O bliss, whoever dwellest deep hid within, while men seek thee outside and never find. Mystery and muse with hieratic tongue. Incarnate the white passion of thy force. Mission to earth some living form of thee. One moment fill with thy eternity. Let thy infinity in one body live. All knowledge wrap one mind in seas of light. All love throb single in one human heart. Immortal, treading the earth with mortal feet. All heaven's beauty crowd in earthly limbs. Omnipotence girdle with the power of God. Movements and moments of a mortal will. Pack with the eternal might one human hour, and with one gesture change all future time. Let a great word be spoken from the heights, and one great act unlock the doors of fate. So now this is the reply from God. This is Ashwapati speaking to the Divine Mother, and this is what she replies. O strong forerunner. Forerunner is the leader. So Ashwapati or Sri Aurobindo is the leader of humanity spiritually. O strong forerunner, I have heard thy cry. One shall descend and break the iron law. What is the iron law? The law of karma, the law of the inconscience, the law that makes us keep repeating the same circles again and again. So one shall descend and break the iron law. So there are these other beautiful lines in Savitri. Yes, yes, break the laws of matter. The law of karma is actually enmeshed in matter. So there are these beautiful lines from Savitri. Across the awful march, no eye can see. This march is the march of the laws of nature which sculpt our thoughts. Across the awful march, no eye can see. Barring the dreadful route, no will can change. The route is where we are going. She stood, she is the Divine Mother, stood facing the engines of the universe. So this whole karmic machinery is like an engine coming hurtling towards us. She stood facing the engines of the universe. A heart stood in the way of its driving wheels. It's coming towards me, but the mother's heart is saying stop. A heart stood in the way of its driving wheels. Its giant workings paused before a mind. Its stark conventions met the flame of a soul. So again, a very touching story to share. There was a student of mine who was grappling with some kind of low in her mind, and whenever that particular repetitive thought pattern would come, she had learnt up this passage, and she would just keep repeating it. Across the awful march no eyes can see, barring the dreadful route no will can change, she stood facing the engines of the universe. And she would visualize that particular thought pattern coming towards her like an engine, and mother standing and stopping it. And she said, inevitably, as I would repeat these lines from Savitri, that would get weaker and weaker, and mother's presence would get stronger and stronger. So what a gift Gurudev has given us in Savitri, and I just feel we are not using it enough. We can use it this boy used it to enhance his IQ. We can use it for anything. All the mental conditions which we struggle so much with psychotherapy and whatever else, if the person has an opening, and I often find people with mental imbalances have a great opening. Because they are so open, they are open to both ends of the spectrum. So if you have the skill to give them some lines of Savitri or whatever, how empowering it can be. You work with that, right, Kahini? Yeah? Fatima, you? So, O strong forerunner, I have heard thy cry. One shall descend and break the iron law, change nature's doom by the lone spirit's power. So this is a promise from the Supreme that I've heard you, somebody will descend. A limitless mind that can contain the world, a sweet and violent heart of ardent calms, moved by the passions of the gods shall come. A sweet and violent heart of ardent calms. Look at the play of words. A heart which is passionate but is full of calm. A sweet and violent heart of ardent calms, moved by the passions of the gods shall come. All mights and greatnesses shall join in her. Beauty shall walk celestial on the earth. Delight shall sleep in the cloud net of her hair. So beautiful. Her hair will be a net of clouds in which delight shall sleep. Birds sleep in a net, but the birds of delight will sleep in the cloud net of her hair. And in her body, as on his homing tree, immortal love shall beat his glorious wings. A music of griefless things shall weave her charm. So there's that other line in Savitri, suffering was lost in her immortal smile. We can be so full of pain, but many of us have experienced, we just look into the mother's eyes before her picture, and suddenly all suffering drains out of us. It's not just a line, it's a truth. Suffering was lost in her immortal smile. So this line, immortal love shall beat his glorious wings. A music of griefless things shall weave her charm. The harps of the perfect shall attune her voice. The streams of heaven shall murmur in her laugh. Her lips shall be honeycombs of God. Her limbs his golden jars of ecstasy. Her breasts the rapture flowers of paradise. She shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword. and from her eyes the eternal's bliss shall gaze. We see this in her mother, in the mother, no? Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword. So we know that incident from her life when she was with Max Theon, who was actually the one who he and his wife taught Mother occultism in her earlier days. But Mother was, of course, the greatest occultist, and she had the mantra of life. And once she was high up on a peak with Max Theon, and he wanted the mantra of life, but Mother knew that if she gave it to him, it would be in very wrong hands. And he was a huge towering man, Mother was this petite lady, and he said, give it to me or I can do anything to you. Menacingly, he had that power. And really we see strength was with her like a conqueror's sword. She just turned to him and said, the divine is right here inside me, you can do nothing to me. And she said it with such authority, he could actually do nothing to her. We see another incident in her childhood. I've told you this, of course. This is when she didn't fully know who she was. And there was a bully in her school. She was a little girl. He was bullying all the children and making fun of the girls. And one day she was half his size, and she said she felt this huge descent of force in her. She says, later on I recognized it, that it was my Mahakali aspect, but that time I didn't know. So she felt this huge descent of Mahakali force into her, and she picked up this hulking bully, twirled him by the hand and threw him down. And he was so startled, he never bullied anyone again. So strength was really with her like a conqueror's sword. And that's the Mahakali aspect. Whenever she sees her children being intimidated or wrong, then this aspect wakes up. It comes as a power that changes everything. You have a question? So, she shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword, and from her eyes the eternal's bliss shall gaze. A seed shall be sown in death's tremendous hour, a branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overleap her mortal step, fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. So, I'll just read a few lines of this. Beauty shall walk celestial, all mights and greatnesses shall join in her. Beauty shall walk celestial on the earth, delight shall sleep in the cloud net of her hair, and in her body as on his homing tree, immortal love shall beat his glorious wings. A music of griefless things shall weave her charm, the harps of the perfect shall attune her voice, the streams of heaven shall murmur in her laugh, her lips shall be the honeycombs of God, her limbs his golden jars of ecstasy, her breasts the rapture flowers of paradise. She shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom, strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword, and from her eyes the eternal's bliss shall gaze. A seed shall be sown in death's tremendous hour, a branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overleap her mortal step, fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. Mother's words again. Sri Aurobindo has arranged everything. Sri Aurobindo has arranged. Sorry? We read this. Oh yeah, we did. The Lord and his Shakti. Mother's words. There, in that immense cave of the inner being, one must plunge to find the inner support. So the mother talks about the cave of the heart, where the psychic being resides. So she says, there in that immense cave of the inner being, One must plunge to find the inner support. One must descend and descend further, more and more, plane after plane, consciousness after consciousness, leaving behind all imprints, and enter into the very depths to find the serene peace. Within this immense quietude of being, far from the exterior noise, far from the anguish and the pain, far from the thoughts and imaginations, far, far away from the waves of sensations, one must enter very carefully, there where the ego does not exist, to feel the presence. So, everything we know of ourselves is conditioned, right? Something or the other has conditioned from our past to think a certain way, feel a certain way. But in our depths, where the psychic being is our original nature. That's the only thing in us which is not conditioned. It exists by itself. So, Mother says, this is the part where you don't find your ego. Within this immense quietude of the being, far from the exterior noise, far from the anguish and the pain, far from the thoughts and imaginations, far, far away from the waves of sensations, one must enter very carefully, there where the ego does not exist, to feel the presence. There is yet further to go, still more to discover, to turn the consciousness inwards where the power vibrates, all powerful, which accomplishes everything. One must go still deeper, where there is no act, no impression, no ego, no separate self, nothing but waves of joy and a vibration which is at the origin of everything, like that, equal, and of a perfect equanimity. To feel and be united with this perfect and immutable peace, then to enter into that serene beatitude where the consciousness is completely identified with the central being. There is no duality anymore, no existence anymore, nothing at all. To be one with the spark of the immortal flame, the immanent divine, the unique, the one, the soul that resides in us. And still deeper down in this purifying flame resides Sri Aurobindo, immutable Ananda, all-powerful, the invincible, the supreme Lord of our existence, the manifestation of the omnipresence in existence, the omnipotence in his effectuations, the omniscience of the supreme power manifested, one who is the goal, the master, the beloved, who is also the supreme Lord. When one truly calls him, it is from here, Mother indicates the heart, that Sri Aurobindo answers. It vibrates by his name and his consciousness. There resounds the name of Sri Aurobindo because his imprint is there in the very depths. It is he who resides. So if we just concentrate in our heart with the mantra Om Sri Aurobindo Ma, he says the psychic being responds to his name because he is there. All existence lives by him. It vibrates by him. The whole universe vibrates by him. He is there in everything, vibrating and animating by his presence. The delight of his name penetrates and purifies all things, rings and resounds everywhere in the sublime joy, eternal and true. See, you may not believe it, but try it as an experiment. Connect with your heart and just 5 minutes repeat the mantra Om Shri Aurobindo Ma with an intention and see what you feel. Because whatever Mother writes, it's never pretty words, it's direct technology of consciousness. The delight of his name penetrates and purifies all, rings and resounds everywhere. to rediscover the immanent divine hidden in everything in the whole universe. To find Him is the eternal game. To feel Him is to feel immutable peace of perfect purity. To realize Him is to find the eternal joy. To call Him is to unlock the doors of infinity. This is the power behind the name Sri Aurobindo, and Mother goes into a trance. Just talking about it, she goes into a trance. This then is the meaning of gratitude, that the divine exists, and a sublime joy fills our being with a marvelous sensation of self-giving in an act of perpetual thankfulness. And we submit ourselves in a peaceful adoration to the Supreme Lord of our being. Me, Mother says, I am there as a presence in the eternal flame, the power that animates and initiates the action, the peace that renders all sweet and peaceful, the joy that overflows and sublimates, the light that purifies and the vibration that sanctions. Sri Aurobindo is there as a sustaining entity, and me, I am there like a guide. In fact, it is the same entity in two. In the heart, the two of us are one. One who observes, the witness, that is Sri Aurobindo. The other that effectuates, makes things happen, the Shakti. Yes, my child, he who recognizes Sri Aurobindo and me, in fact, it is the same thing, the same identity. For him, all obstacles, difficulties, all traps, all the so-called interruptions on the march towards the truth are swept away and removed forever, in this life as well as after death and in the lives to come till eternity. Yes, for him the Lord is all-powerful. Only to repeat, Ma Sri Aurobindo, Ma Sri Aurobindo, and she goes into a trance. That is enough. You know, each vibration that emanates from us, each ray of light radiating from us becomes a beacon light spreading in the being of the inconscience and illuminating its path towards the truth of its existence. It is only because of Sri Aurobindo that I can accomplish this work. He does the major portion of the work. He invites me. He opens the door and I enter the depths of the inconscience and I kindle the light to illumine atoms in the torpor of inconscience. So Mother writes that wherever they have walked, wherever their footprints are there, the atoms have absorbed the energy which radiates then for time to come, and anything that has their relics, like their relics are installed here, it has the power. That's why I urge you all that I know you can sit in comfort in your home and listen to the recording, but when you come here and listen, it's something different because there's a vibration here, like there's a vibration in any matter that's been touched by them. So, he does the major portion of the work. He invites me. He opens the door and I enter the depths of this inconscience and I kindle the light to illumine the atoms in the torpor of inconscience. I put there a bit of force to awaken them and I give this divine love so that they may aspire more. I charge each atom in this way. So Mother's doing all this to the atoms of our body and we don't even realize it. We are not conscious of it. But she's working on us as we are sitting here right now. Think about it, she is. There we have placed our feet and left our footprints behind. Those atoms radiate and influence others which are in their proximity, and this way the work of transmutation continues unabated. So I often share this story. Once I had taken a person to Pondicherry from when I take my yoga camps there, And this person was suffering from quite a depression because she was a spinster and she was living with her mother, and her mother had just moved on. So it's frightening to be alone. And people were sharing, they are experiencing this and they are experiencing that. And she said, you know, I'm feeling nothing. This place is not for me. I said, I can only bring you here. Rest is between you and the mother. I don't know how to help you, but I can only tell you that you wouldn't have come here without her invitation. So just wait. So we went back. A week later, she called me and she told me, you know, I told you that I was feeling nothing, not that I felt anything, but ever since I've come back from Pondicherry, I haven't had a day's depression. So without her knowing it, mother's force was working on her inconscient or her subconscious. Depression really comes from a subconscious mind, right? And sometimes we are not even conscious enough to feel the working of her force, but she works. Last passage from Savitri. So mother has said, he is the presence in matter which paves the way for me to come, and I am the Shakti which enters and changes the codings of the darknesses in the inconscient. So she says, this is the knot that ties together the stars. The two who are one, Shiva and Shakti, are the two who are one. Mother and Sri Aurobindo, the two who are one, are the secret of all power. The two who are one are the might and right in things. His soul, silent, supports the world and her. His acts are her commandments' registers. Happy, inert, he lies beneath her feet. We see, in temple, Shiva lying and Kali's foot on his chest. You all know that story. Once Kali was furious and she was dancing a mad tandab, destroying everything. And all the gods went to Shiva and said, please do something. At this rate, everything will get destroyed. So Shiva got up and just lay down in her path. And the moment Kali, doing her furious dance, stepped on Shiva, she became still. So this is a beautiful, Kali's dance is the play of our thoughts, the engines of the universe which are churning. She faced the engines of the universe. Her heart stood in the way of its driving wheels. So the moment this churning in our head, the dance of Kali inside us, finds Shiva, the witnessing consciousness behind, she becomes still. So it's symbolic of that. Happy inert, he lies beneath her feet. His breast he offers for her cosmic dance, of which our lives are the quivering theatre. And none could bear for his strength within. Sometimes this dance becomes so depressing that we would not bear it if we didn't have the strength of the witness within us, which none could bear but for his strength within. Yet none would leave because of his delight. His works, his thoughts have been devised by her. His being is a mirror vast of hers. Active, inspired by her, he speaks and moves. His deeds obey her heart's unspoken demands. Passive, he bears the impacts of the world, as if her touches shaping his soul and life. His journey through the days is her sun march. He runs upon her roads. Hers is his course. A witness and student of her joy and dole, a partner in her evil and her good. He has consented to her passionate ways. He is driven by her sweet and dreadful force. So I thought next week for Savitri, I want each of you to take the trouble to read Savitri and bring me just 2 lines which you use as your mantra through the whole week, and share how they helped you change, if they did help you change. Will you all do that? make it a point to read some Savitri every day, and if any line stands out, mark it, preferably a new line. Some of you have been reading, but see a new line that calls to you, and it will be lovely to share how it's impacted you, because I mean, you come and you listen to me, but it's a pity if you're not reading Savitri on your own every day. You should. It's the most, Mother says reading Savitri is the highest meditation. But honestly, when I first read Savitri, it was like reading Sanskrit. My first reading, I didn't understand anything. Second reading, I understood more. Third reading, I understood more. So Mother says, as you read Savitri, it creates vibrations in your head to help you understand Savitri more. It actually changes the working of your brain. So all of you this week, if Savitri is available here, for those of you who don't have it, do pick one up, offer it to them, they'll help you open to it. Okay, so let's end with 3 ohms. Sit tall. So, when you bring your lines from Savitri next week, all of us, if we could just carry our Savitris so that we can open and read what others have brought, and you tell us the page numbers. Yeah? So, all of you carry your Savitris next week. That will make sure all of you buy a Savitri also.